I'm going to record. Also, of course, the chat is open, although I know Maggie is going to interact with you in the chat. But we welcome if you would all make sure that you've already done it. You've all have your sound off and are ready to go. And I just need to tell you a little bit about Maggie because, all right, first of all, Maggie's a veteran. And she came into the creativity program with expertise around leadership, creative practice, embodied cognition, and also looking at work with creativity, leadership, and women, and some exciting directions in the future. So many of you who have gone through a graduate program will appreciate this. Maggie is in her master's project right now, and this work is part of her project. So we are thrilled that she's here with us and is going to introduce us to her newest thinking. Maggie.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. Thank you, everybody. Hi, good morning, or probably good afternoon. It's good morning for me here in Denver and wherever the rest of you are. Good afternoon. Yes, I am Maggie Kubler. I'm a graduate student in my last term at Buff State. I'm really excited. Dr. Sue is my project advisor, so I'm really grateful for you being my moderator and everything today. So hopefully that gives me brownie points on this project.
Absolutely.
But yes, thank you so much for coming. This is my presentation, my work, my thinking on visual psychology, gaining interoceptive awareness through abstract photography. So if any of you just sat in on the keynote speech, it got a little existential there with regards to human creativity and AI and what everything and how everything's going to kind of mold itself in the future. And the conversation sort of ended on the importance of art. And I really appreciate that leading into obviously this conversation. So I am an artist. I'm a photographer. The abstract works we're going to see today are my photography that I've made. I will not be offended if you don't like it. Don't worry. It's just a workshop, just a practice today. This is a pilot workshop where I am trying to use abstract photography to kind of evoke interoceptive awareness and interoceptive perspectives and sensations. And we'll get into more of that later. Besides a photographer, I'm a musician. I play the flute and I am a creative writer. My first master's degree is actually in creative nonfiction writing. So a lot of my work, I am a classically trained flautist. I do a lot of creative nonfiction writing, but a lot of my work outside of that, my creative work, is improvisation and abstraction. So I'll do abstract photography, I do jazz improv on my flute, and I write some improvisational poetry, things like that. So the reason why I find that so important is there is so much you can learn about yourself within the shadows of improvisation and abstraction because it's not representative, it is exploratory. And there's a lot of hidden knowledge about yourself and your intuition, introspection that can be pulled out of these practices. So yes, that's kind of my point of view that I come from. That said, we're going to see how this actually intersects with leadership. So this is not necessarily just an indulgence in creativity or creative expression, if you will. I do want to apply it, and that's through my master's work here. How do I apply these ideas to leadership or self-leadership? So, I gotta click next. Before we get started here, I would like, as we're kind of contemplating the concept of art and abstraction, I would like for you to think of a time that you've experienced some sort of art that you didn't understand and it made you mad that anybody called it art. For me, I have a time when I was about 16 years old. I was in Paris at the Centre Pompidou, which is modern contemporary art. And I remember going up this escalator and it brought you up to the second floor. And as soon as you walked in, it was kind of this big expanse of a room, and there was a large display, kind of almost as soon as you got to the top of the stairs there. And I approached it, I walked up close to it, and it was filled full of dead sparrows performing various human activities. So riding a bike or wearing a sweater. And I remember being so mad and thinking, how is this art? How is it that you could just walk through the streets of Paris, pick up dead birds, put it in display, and call it art? So I'd like for you to think about a time where maybe you had a similar thought. Maybe you saw a piece and went, I could do that in 5 minutes. Especially a lot of abstract contemporary art, probably a square on a canvas. I could do that. And it kind of makes you mad because they made $1 million off of that or something. Or maybe you heard something improvisational in terms of jazz and you're like, that's not music. It doesn't make any sense. So try to reflect on that time. Maybe can you think about what your facial expression may have been? How was your jaw set? Anything like that. So for me, when I think about the dead birds, I can feel like energy in my hand, kind of a clenching feeling of why dead birds? I can almost feel like a tickle in my throat where kind of that bemused laughter kind of comes up, and you're like, okay, I guess that's art. The point is, as you're reflecting on these stories and listening to maybe my experience here, all of those sensations that you might be remembering or recalling, that is interoceptive awareness. So, what is interoception? Interoception is the awareness of sensations going on in the body. It could be things like heart rate, hunger cues, physiological responses. Interoception is also known as the eighth sense and answers the questions, how do I feel? Interoception information is information from our internal systems that kind of interact with the brain. It tells us what's going on in our body. That information can help us regulate our emotional state, tend to our needs, and have a physical sense of self. It is part of somatic awareness, which allows us a felt sense in our body. This is how we know that we exist. So interoception here, as you'll see, is one of the concepts I'm researching for my master's project. Suzanne here knows this intimately. She works really deeply in interoception. So I kind of feel a little bit like I'm speaking to one of my mentors right now. She's ahead of me in this game. But interoception is one of the concepts I'm researching for my master's project as part of this greater creative self leadership framework, which is rooted in these 5 I's. You'll notice these 5 I's here. I have interoception, as we're going to discuss today, introspection, which is sense making, thinking about thinking, reflection. So as a writer, I do a lot of that. Intuition, which is a synthesis of experience into novel judgment. So basically, pattern recognition, which you're then able to attribute to knowledge or attribute to something that it's really hard. There's a lot of research being done on intuition, and all of it says we don't really know what intuition is, but we think it's a very subconscious processing that has a lot to do with like information that you bring in and you process and through pattern recognition. And therefore there's a way of thinking, there's information that comes out of that. Imagination, obviously, as creatives, we understand what imagination is, generative, and it's futures thinking. And intrinsic motivation. So these are the conditions of autonomy, competence, and relatedness, which comes from self-determination theory. Basically, are the things that I'm doing, do I value them? And are they in alignment with my values? And therefore, do I want to keep doing them? So these are the 5 I's of my creative self-leadership framework. Beyond that, my framework integrates CPS as well as Dr. Ruth Noller's creativity formula and Mel Rode's 4 Ps, which I think many of us know. The concept in and of itself, the framework in and of itself is adaptive, iterative, and generative. And it is intended to construct agency, resilience, and transformation within the framework of creative self-leadership, and especially for women. So if you want to know more about that, you will have to read my entire project once it goes up on the digital commons, because we don't have time for that today. But just moving on here, you'll notice here in my research that I'm discovering that interoception, introspection, and intuition all seemingly inform each other. They're all processing various information. So interoception, as we're going to discover, is going to give us certain physical somatic information. Introspection, as I mentioned, thinking about thinking, writing, all those things, that's more information, which then gives us information to create patterns, which intuition picks up on. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in my research so far. In these three eyes here, this is where understanding the self is constructed. So that's why it's pretty important to me to kind of incorporate an interoceptive practice, which I think many of us don't do on a daily basis, incorporate an interoceptive practice in our daily lives because there's a lot of information about ourselves and recognizing the self within this information. And just a little sidestep here. It's a bit of a hypothesis, and maybe we can talk about this later if you have any comments on it. But the more I think about it, the more I research this, I think that these three I's, interoception, introspection, and intuition, result in integrity. Um, but it's not just in the sense of values and self-knowledge, but it is also through interoception gives you that felt sense of self. So you understand who you are, where you are, that I exist, what I think. I think in many senses, we think of integrity as being something that you have your values and you stand in them. But integrity, especially as I'm kind of working through this creative self leadership framework in terms of how does an individual interact with an environment or a system, these three I's are going to create, I think, integrity so that the individual can have the interdependent dynamic with their environment. So if that's the case, if I'm right, if I'm going to, as I do more research, I think my framework might be called the six I's, and I might just need to rename it from there because it's just getting cumbersome. I might be up to 27 I's at some point. So, but that's where my thinking's going so far. So here we are today. As I mentioned, we're going to do a little bit of collecting a little bit of interoceptive data. Most importantly, because life is experienced in the body. We tend to spend a lot of our times, especially me as a writer, spend a lot of time in my head. And so we think a lot of our life is within our thought processes and the introspective or anything that we connect in our brains. But actually, most of our life exists in our body. Our existence is in our body. So this data that we're going to try practicing today informs our thoughts and perceptions. So having interoceptive awareness is important because it helps you to truly know yourself. For example, when I get frustrated, I might feel like a tingle throughout my face, my nose might buzz, my forehead tightens. I can even feel like a tingly sensation in my teeth. So when I have those things happen, I can recognize, ooh, I'm frustrated, and stop and go, why? Why am I frustrated? And that's more information gathering. So this correct data leads to intended behavior, because if you don't recognize that you're frustrated, you probably just get frustrated without intending to. And this intended behavior will leads to actions that you actually truly want to have be a part of your life, which is imperative to any leader or self-leader. So that is where the art, improvisation, all those things intersect with leadership. It is about understanding, collecting data and understanding the self so that you can make informed decisions and informed actions. So we're going to start kind of getting into the exercise now. I'll frame it a bit more here in a minute, but just before we do that, I kind of wanted to explain the point of the exercise and why abstract photography. So the point of this exercise is simply to practice noticing. I'm very sorry, Dr. Sue did not give me all the time today to make you interoceptive experts. This is simply drawing attention to this is a practice that we should incorporate to gain information and gain data on ourselves. And I choose to do it through abstract photography, musical improvisation, creative writing, those kind of things. These initiate opportunities to notice. But this can be a practice that is done anytime, anywhere. I think even sports is a great opportunity for these practices. I have a lot of interoceptive perceptions. When the Packers lose, I feel a lot of things. So perhaps sports can evoke something like that. But I choose art. And as the keynote mentioned earlier today, it's very existentially necessary that we practice more art. So I'm grateful for all of you giving us an opportunity today. So abstract art or abstract photography or abstract art in general is referred to as visual psychology. And that is because it is evocative. Just sitting with abstract art, especially when you don't know what the artist is trying to express, can have you feel certain things, think certain things that are going to be visceral. You can feel them, and that's where interoception comes into play. And it's personal because, again, there's no real interaction outside of today. There's no interaction with the artist to know what they're thinking. So you come up with it on your own. The emotions that might come out of sitting with a piece of abstraction are going to be your own. The information, the knowledge, all those things are going to be your own. The meaning making is going to be yours. So that's why it's considered visual psychology. Abstract photography, for those of you who don't know, is a non-representational, conceptual, and experimental genre of photography that uses various photographic tools like lens blur, macro lenses you get in real tight, or you could use bokeh, which is the blurring sensation or the blurring visual aesthetic that a lot of photography has. Post-production, so people can Photoshop things. I do a little bit of post-production in mine. I'm not Photoshopping anything in there, but I'll discuss it as we get into the exercise. But these images then don't have an immediate, obvious connection to the physical world. You don't exactly know what you're looking at. You're meant to sit with abstraction and not necessarily figure it out. It's an interaction that you're having with art. And because it's so personal, it's almost like you can develop a relationship with a piece of art if you sit with it long enough. It can pull at your emotions, it can bring out subconscious thoughts, which will then connect to something random, which can make sitting with abstraction very generative. I had initially planned to make this exercise more of a generative free write. Maybe if we have time at the end, if you have a pen and paper handy, we could do some of that. But just for the practice of noticing, we're not going to do so much of a free write. But what I would suggest, if you ever have the opportunity, is follow the thread. Follow the thread of what abstraction or sitting with art or sports or whatever it is. If you notice something and it makes you think of something, follow that thread and see where it goes. There's a lot of insight there. The most important thing to know, especially in this exercise today, and as you take this out into your daily life, is all of it is valid. Any thoughts, any perceptions, any connections, it's all valid. It's yours. Your reactions will be unique to you, especially, like I said, in terms of meaning. And all of this can lead to interoceptive awareness. Okay. So just to orient us as to where we're going, before we step into the exercise here, we're just going to do a check-in. So a somatic check-in. I'll do a little guided, not really meditation, but just a body check-in, just to calm ourselves down and get our heads ready for the exercise. I will then show you abstract one with no context. Basically, I'll pull up the image and you can sit there with it. You can do anything that you'd like. You could take notes if you want, or just sit there and notice. I prefer to take notes. I think that's just I'm a writer and I just like the physical act of writing something down. It helps me kind of get some information going. But if you just want to sit there and see what happens, by all means. After the abstract one, I'd just like to have you, I'd like to please invite you to put in the chat anything you may have noticed. Don't have to worry about being too personal. I'm not trying to get into your business, but anything you may have noticed. If there's a sensation you felt in an arm or something like that, whatever, or any thoughts that may have come up, by all means, please share it. And then we'll revisit abstract one, but this time I will give you context for it. So I will show you what the picture is actually of. I will tell you the title. I will tell you the concept and part of the greater work that it's a part of. And then we'll go back to the chat. The point for doing that is not just to notice a difference in your body, but I would like to also see if you can notice what your body feels like when something makes sense, when something is right. So when I give you the context for something, is there a difference in your noticing that goes, oh, I remember feeling this way when I know I'm right about something, or when I figured it out, or when I had my aha moment? So how does meaning shift your physical experience? This connects to leadership because wouldn't effective leaders know what to follow? Wouldn't effective leaders know the sensations that they're looking for, the rightness that they feel in their body, that they can track then as they move along through their decision making? And we'll do that twice. We'll do this whole thing twice. I would like to just make a small note here. It may be that these pieces don't resonate with you at all. Maybe you don't get anything out of it. You're not wrong. Okay. Maybe it's the art. Again, won't be offended. Maybe the art doesn't resonate with you. Absolutely fine. Or I would like to maybe gently suggest maybe you're a little bit out of practice with your interoceptive awareness, and that's what we're trying to do here. Either of those could be true. So as we get into the exercise here, just a couple of suggestions about what you might notice. Don't forget, all information is data, so if thoughts come up, follow them. You could do something like tightness along the jaw if you feel tightness along the jaw, or maybe like your eyes are shifting or something like that. Note that. And then say, what does that mean to me? What is it telling me? Maybe even consider a circumstance where you would have felt that before, and you could connect that information to the past. Could be something tingling down the arms. I know when I have my aha, this is right. I understand it. I get a rush of energy down my arms. To me, that means I'm exhilarated. I get it. I'm excited. So before we go into the exercise, I'd like to reiterate once again, we're not trying to figure it out. You're just sitting with the art, the thoughts and the images themselves. Just sit with it. Remember, the goal here is just to practice noticing. Okay, if everybody's ready, I would like to take a beat, and we're going to go into the grounding exercise. And before I do that, maybe take a moment here and just kind of notice, do you have any sensations behind your eyes at all? Okay, so I'm going to slow things down. I know that was a lot of information, so let's slow things down and get into a really receptive mode. So let's see where you begin and where you end. I'd like to invite you to please settle into your chairs, sit up straight, hands on your knees and shoulders back. Maybe please think about uncrossing your feet, your jaw loose, but your lips closed. You can breathe in through your nose slowly and out. Maybe do this at your own pace a few times. Close your eyes if you'd like. You can start with a quick body scan. Imagine a ring of light around the top of your head. It swirls and flickers. And then start to move it down your forehead, your face, your jaw, your throat. And at your own pace, just continue that down to your toes. What do you notice in your body? Is anything tingling at all? Sore? Anybody mad about dead birds as art? Okay, now I'd like for you to notice the distance between the top of your head down to the bottom of your feet. Can you sense your length? Now try your width. How far from side to side do you expand, especially when you breathe in through your chest, your abdomen, your shoulders? Just notice. Just notice your width, your knees. Now your depth. Sense the warmth on your back where it touches your chair. Then as you breathe in, imagine the air, that warmth, as it crosses into your body, passes through all of your organs and out to the front. How does your front feel? Opening to the expanse of the future. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to pull up the next slide. It'll be the first abstraction. Just sit a moment and notice if there's any energy in your body. Okay, I'll be pulling up the abstraction now. Again, just sit with it, take any notes that you might want, or just notice. Do you notice anything in your face? Is that jaw loose? About 10 more seconds. And I'd like to invite you to please put something in the chat, anything that you'd like to share. Okay. You can take your mic off if you'd like and just tell us or put anything in the chat, anything, just anything you may have noticed, sensations, thoughts, memories. It's all information. So look at what you wrote or think about what you want to type and how well do you think that you did at noticing? Maybe ponder one sensation and can you connect that specific sensation to other moments in your life? When did you feel that before? Try to pull up the chat here.
Yeah, there's lots in there.
Okay. I'm just seeing Jennifer's comment. Thank you
Yeah.
guys. Another eye. Yes, 28 eyes. Uh, okay. Not sharp, nice colors. Zooming in too much on a hair of a human or animal, like a ray of light. Feels good to slow down thoughts. Some sensations around head and shoulders. Tingling in my feet. Layers of possibility, warmth. Okay. All right. That's all great. Good job. Buzzing sensation at my temples and forehead. Excellent. Okay. Let's see if I can pull this back up. Okay. Again, we're just noticing. So I'm going to go into the same image, but this time with context. And then once we have the context, I'll flip to the next slide where you can review the image again in its entirety. One thing I'd like to note real quick is abstraction is kind of meant to be observed at scale. So we're going to do the best we can on whatever devices we're using today. So here's the context. This is an image I call Unsure. It's part of a greater project that I'm working on personal transformation. You'll see here it's part of I have this vintage cabinet in my living room full of all my albums, and it's some of those, I forget. This would have been done with some lens blur, so I kind of slowly moved the lens when I took the shot, and a bit of post-production there, but just in terms of increasing saturation of the colors. So I'm going to move into the image again and notice anything you perceive. Do you notice anything different in your chest now that you understand this? How do your hands feel? About 5 more seconds. Please take what you know into the chat.
They were with you. They started putting them in there before you even asked.
Okay. Interesting. Makes me wonder about the smell. Love that. Calm in the uncertainty. Context open up more sensory experiences that weren't there with the first image. Interesting. Love that. I would like to hear the music. Fair enough. Fair enough. In the first, I had multiple sensations in various locations. In the second, when I knew what it was, I felt a coherence and integration of sensations. Suzanne, that's why you had to be here today. Thank you. That's brilliant. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. That's really interesting. Now I'm going to go into the next image, and we're going to do this again. So please, again, we're just sitting here noticing this one. I will not give you context until the second time. Do you notice anything in your throat? How about in your lower abdomen? Please take about 10 more seconds here, and anything you perceive, please feel free to put it in the chat. Feeling of vastness, energy moving outward from my cheeks, forehead, and chest. Calm, settled feeling in lower abdomen, secure, solid like granite. Miss Jennifer, you do a lot of this work, don't you? Tight back and shoulders, a sensation of constriction in the throat area. Tension in chest, slightly exhilarated. Interesting. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Now I'm going to move into some context here. Oh, keep hitting that. Sorry. We already did that. Okay. So this is my kitchen counter. This is a shot I took with a macro lens. I don't think I did any lens blur with this one, just a lot of bokeh. And I did some post-production in the colors, but the colors are there. I didn't add the colors. I just increased the saturation and the vibrancy just to pull out was there. The pink that you see in there, I think that there was a container of protein powder, a hot pink container of protein powder I had sitting on my counter that the sun kind of reflected the light off of, and I just caught it because I thought it was beautiful. So that's where the pink came from. You'll see that this is called Breathing Room, and it's from the same collection of my personal transformation series. So I'll pull up the image one more time. Please take a moment to notice what you feel now knowing the context. How's your forehead? Your upper arms? About 5 more seconds here, please. And let's go ahead and move that into the chat. What did you notice? Focus on your skin. Interesting.
And
Forehead is still buzzing.
you have about 5 minutes left, just so you know.
Yes, thank you. I'm almost done.
Here, it's terrific.
Okay. 1 unit. Love that. I would say that that's probably the sense of coherence, an awareness of floating space that isn't transferring to my body. Brilliant. Almost a bit aggressive. Interesting. Focus on a full head. Very interesting. I love it. Great. Well, thank you so much for your openness and being willing to share what you experienced in that. Yeah, so if you'd like to keep the conversation going, I'm running out of time here. This was excellent. So I appreciate everybody's time here and practicing something new. If you would like to stay in touch, please join me on LinkedIn. I'm usually mostly on LinkedIn, but you can find me at Maggie@unfilteredjourneys.com. That's my email, or on my website. I do put some of my improvisation work on there on my flute, and some of my writing is up there. So we'll be able to stay in touch more there. This is a personal practice that I like to keep is working in improvisation and abstraction. So I'd love to share that with you. So real quick, before we say goodbye, I'll just wrap this up, and we have a couple more minutes at the end here. So if anybody wants to just get off mic or off mute and hop on your mic, have a conversation, that'd be great. But just real quick here, I would love to encourage you to keep up this practice, just noticing any physical sensations in your body as you go about your days or come across any art that might even make you angry. There are opportunity for this everywhere. For example, currently I have this piece up here. It's part of the same collection I just showed you. It's called Emergence. It's hanging up in my state senator's office here in Denver. And I have a different connection to this art, but just to kind of share my own interoceptive experience with you, when I look at this piece, I feel openness in my chest and throat, which reads to me as satisfaction. This lets me know that I value creating art and then sharing it, executing it to the point of making it public. So that is my whole process. And I would like to encourage you to take a beat, do the same thing, practice noticing. Art is a good way to do this, but as I mentioned earlier, sports could do the same, walks in nature, whatever it might be. The point is to just start cultivating that sense of you, where you end and where everything else begins, wherever you are. So thank you so much for your participation. I've got 2 minutes here, and Mr. Chris.
Now, before Chris talks, I just want to say, put some feedback in the chat also. Remember, this is for
Oh,
our
yes.
master's project. So Chris is going to talk, and the rest of you also tell us what you liked, and I'll make sure she gets the chat. So
Yes, thank you.
Anna, well, thank you, Maggie. It's super interesting. Are you familiar with Meow Wolf? And they're
Yes, I
coming
just
up with
went there
something
this
in
weekend.
Texas. Oh, you did?
Yeah,
And
I
I don't
just
know
went
where I
to Yellow
heard
this
this.
weekend. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There we go. And I don't know where I heard this. Where in Texas they're building Meow Wolf with a spa. There's this sort of
Oh, no
emergence
way.
happening.
Oh, cool.
And so you're in this right incredible whirlpool jacuzzi, and then similar to what
That's
you're showing with
amazing.
your interesting photography and just having those sensations
Yeah,
of this immersive art. So highly recommend check that. I
great
just
tip.
saw an
Yeah.
article.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
That's
So I could
really
see
cool.
your work being there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the intersection of the sensations, I think, is really clever. Meow Wolf, if anybody's ever been, it's a really wacky, or hasn't been, it's a really wacky museum. We have one here in Denver, and I was just there this weekend, and it's very otherworldly, psychedelic. It's crazy, but it's super fun. And yeah, that's a battle for all your senses, that's for sure. You'll have all the interoception. One more minute here if anybody else has a comment.
And Suzanne asked a question. Curious
Oh,
about how you asked about specific parts.
You
curious.
guided us. You said, is there something going on your throat? Is there something going on your jaw? And you said that. I would be like, yeah, there is. So I was curious, was that from your experience?
Yes, but then I also kind of know that a lot of those are tension points anyway,
I
and so
see.
just kind of drawing attention to those tension points just to make sure, like, relax it and or notice it, and
Mhm.
that way, yeah, it just draws your attention to it, and there's information in there too. Good question, thank you. All right, I really appreciate everybody. I know the next I think we're on a quick break here real quick, so I don't want to take your time away from that. I really appreciate everybody's participation today, and I greatly value any feedback. Again, you can find me on LinkedIn, my email, whatever. Critiques, criticism, I'll take it all. I really appreciate you.
Great,
And thanks for
great
sharing.
job, Maggie. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank
And
you.
talk about bringing it home right on time. I mean, what a master, huh, of presenting.
Well,
Uh,
I was in the military, so
yes, yes. Well, and I just want to say there's a whole other round of presentations coming up that we hope you'll stay for. And I will put in the chat the listing. And
Thank
Ann
you, Maggie.
Bryson
thank
is
you, Chris.
coming up in this one. So thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. Thank you, everybody.